You are listening to the Final Say Radio Show, a Rappaport media production, with your host Brett Rappaport and co-host John Rappaport.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct honor to welcome Avital Leibovich to her first appearance on the Final Say radio program with John and Brett Rappaport. Avital's a newly minted director at AJC's Jerusalem office. And by the way, AJC is the American Jewish Committee. Avital was also the spokesperson up until very recently and a social media expert for the IDF, reaching the rank of lieutenant colonel in the reserves. Avital, I know it's quite late in Jerusalem. Welcome to the Final Say. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, and hello from Israel.
While we were waiting for you to come on, I just reviewed, and I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but there was a House Resolution 622 that was recently filed by many of the terrific congressmen who are steadfast supporters of Israel. And, you know, it's my contention that the Obama administration has too often turned a blind eye to Abbas's paying stipends directly or indirectly to Palestinian terrorists, essentially rewarding terrorists for killing and maiming Israelis. And what this bill is designed to do is correct that misguided policy. So in light of the enormous graft and corruption that we have seen over the years, currently from Abbas and formerly from Arafat, collectively I like to refer to them as the godfathers of modern terrorism, and the recent Hamas/PLO reunion, do you think American taxpayers have received any real value at all for the approximately $5 billion investment that we've made in the PA since the Oslo Accords were signed in 1993?
Well, I think actually the proof is seen by the world right now because, this unity, so-called unity government, or at least the illusion that he tried to portray is actually shattering in the world's face right now as Hamas, the co-partner, so-called aspiring for peace and full of goodwill and looking forward to advance some sort of a political process. The same Hamas did not change, not even one bit, and now it's partner of the PA. And this means that they are together united in the same principles or the same beliefs. A few days ago, we had a horrific event here in Israel, which is the kidnapping of 3 kids done by Hamas, which is right now the partner of PA. So I think that this illusion that maybe was sold in a very good PR stunt to the world has actually shattered.
I think you're spot on with this. And, I contend that the current administration coerced Bibi into releasing the PLO prisoners. But what concerns me most, and why I would tie this together with the event you just mentioned, is that I believe these kidnappings were very predictable as a result of Israel's history, not just this recent event, but Israel has a long history of trading prisoners for hostages and or the remains of hostages. Does it worry you that every time we make this trade that we're simply inviting more hostage-taking?
Yeah, definitely. I think you hit a right point there. Most of the kidnapping, and I'm sure people are not aware of this, but most of the kidnappings took place actually in the central part of Israel, not in the West Bank, not in remote areas, but rather in the Tel Aviv area or I would say maximum half an hour drive from Tel Aviv, either to the north or south. This is the majority of the kidnappings. We are very much as a nation, as a country, very much are connected to the military. Everybody, in a way, is a stockholder in the military. Since we have mandatory service here, either we serve, our families serve, our friends serve, and so on. So I would say there's a very strong emotional attachment of Israelis. And this is why when someone is being abducted, then the immediate expectation of the Israeli public would be that the government would do everything in order to bring that person who has been abducted back home to Israel, dead or alive. And while, the other side, their enemies, see these kind of emotions or emotion output there, of course they take it into their advantage. And this is why today we are hearing more and more voices in the political echelon calling to refrain from releasing prisoners, actually for good. Even some of them are trying to pass some laws in the Knesset.
Well, of course, with the Burdell incident here in the U.S., we've had this discussion in a very personal and painful manner on our own. Avital, I wanted to point out that Catherine Ashton, the EU's foreign policy chief, took 5 days to condemn this kidnapping. They're very quick to condemn Israel, but it took 5 whole days to condemn. And I was thinking to myself at first, this might be reflective of the rising anti-Semitism that the AJC has done a terrific job of highlighting with some of your colleagues from Europe. But isn't it as much a failure of Israel's PR? And given your background as a social media PR expert for the IDF, is Israel taking adequate advantage of this event? Because this is as much a game of words as it is of weapons, and I fear that we continue to win the game of weapons and lose the game of words, which makes us kind of look like bullies on the world stage.
Well, the thing is this, Israel has a very large amount of reporters from all over the world that are covering what's going on in Israel. I'm talking about 800 reporters, really from all over the world. It's a really big number for such a small country like Israel. However, approximately 2.5, 3 years ago, the coverage almost diminished. The same people, the same correspondents that are actually based in Jerusalem were called to other places, other countries in the Middle East. So their homes were actually in Jerusalem, but they actually reported from Lebanon, from Syria, from Turkey, Bahrain, Afghanistan, other places, all but Israel. This means that the coverage of Israel really went down dramatically. But when we did get coverage, or this country did get coverage, it was only in times of crisis or major events. A major event can be when the president is elected. A major event can be when there's an operation. A major event can be when there's, of course, a war. This, for us, of course, it's a lot more difficult to explain what is going on in the country if it's only being covered in peaks. For instance, take this year, 2014, the number of rockets that were fired from Gaza into Israel from the beginning of 2014, and we are, 6 months into 2014? We're talking about 200 rockets. By the way, the last barrage was 48 hours ago into Ashkelon, a city of 200,000 people. Now try and find out reports. Let's take the U.S. media, not just the European media. The American media, you won't find any reports about it. Hardly you will find any reports about it because this situation has been going on for 12 years and the media doesn't care about it. It's not a newsworthy story any longer. So here comes the solution. You have the social media today. We did not have this 10 years ago, but we have it today. And this is an alternative, or I would call it even a completing effort to the mainstream media. And right now there's a huge campaign going on in Israel in order to try and raise awareness. There is a hashtag being used called Bring Back Our Boys. And the Palestinians, as of today, actually marketed their own campaign, which is horrific if you ask me. And their slogan reads, 3 Shalits. And in their campaign, you can see many kids, many Palestinian kids as young as 5 years old or 6 years old, being exploited for this campaign and raising their 3 fingers in the air just to demonstrate the 3 kidnapped teens. So I would say it's a tough audience. It's the correspondents are tough audiences for us because they don't care what's going on here. Iraq is taking a lot of the main headlines in the world, and nevertheless, I do think that I prefer a late condemnation from the world than a non-existent condemnation.
Well, I would have to agree with that. I have one quick question before I turn you over to Brett. I think one of the most important side effects of the way the media covers this, as you just pointed out, and we see this in Europe, and specifically we definitely see this with the American left, that they find it easy to separate both the political and military wings, whether we're speaking with respect to Hezbollah, Hamas, or with Fatah. I believe this to be nefarious and devious. In other words, it's a false narrative. And I think you can't win against those who purvey evil if you're not willing to, let me restate that, if we are willing to allow them to defeat us in the media and to divide us politically. Does it bother you that all of these organizations seem to get a pass on their political side and it's allowed to be separated from the military side? And do you see them, as I do, as being one of the same in reality?
I think those that are doing the separation between a military wing and a political wing are basically shutting their eyes to the reality, because anybody listening to us now can actually go on online and look at the Hamas website and read Hamas charter. And it doesn't matter if you're a politician working for Hamas or you're a military wing officer or soldier for Hamas, you are under the same charter. You are under the same agenda. And if you take Article 17, for example, in Hamas charter, calls for the women of Hamas to raise her children for jihad. So it doesn't matter if you're a politician or not. The values, the principles, the way of life of Hamas is the same. And it doesn't matter, I mean, if you're a politician or not. I think it's a mistake. It's a big mistake. And look at Hezbollah. Look what we have now. Hezbollah started as a military organization and then found its way into the government of Lebanon. Today they're in a position of which they can veto any decision in the parliament there. But yet they are not. You cannot differentiate between their wings. They are a semi-military terror organization that has a number of over 100,000 rockets. They're not politicians.
That's absolutely correct. Avital, this is Brett, and I want to thank you for joining us. I have got a few questions that are a little more political with regards to some recent events in Israel. The first would be, you guys have recently had elections there, and Reuven Rivlin was elected to be president. And I just wanted to ask, being that he's got a mindset that's different from what you guys have been used to over the last few decades, is that going to change anything politically speaking in the decision-making and how Israel will be dealing with the West Bank and Gaza going forward?
Well, as you know, Brett, the role of the president of Israel is more of a representative one rather than a political one. I think his big challenge would be in the international arena, as many of his political jobs that he completed were actually internal, inside the country, with Israelis, with the political parties, with different Israeli in the country. So I think his experience with the international arena was limited to his time as chair of Knesset, hosting delegations and things like that. But he has this challenge. This is, I think, the first challenge. The second challenge, which everybody filling in as president after Peres will have, is actually stepping into and trying to fill Peres' shoes. You know, he had the reputation, he had the charisma, he had everything that we can wish and even more for a president. I think that, you know, most of the Israelis would like to see Rivlin succeed because, in a way, he's representing us all over the world, and really people hope for his success. But this entire presidential campaign here was one of the worst ones we've ever seen because different candidates had to barely strip and give very detailed information about their assets, the number of apartments and homes they have, their income. We've never seen anything like that, and in that sense, it was really shameful.
That's very interesting. Now, I've noticed for many years now there seems to be a very coordinated PR campaign, and I would almost believe that that Hamas and Hezbollah and these other terrorist organizations have sought after the best marketing firms in the world to help draft this campaign because it's almost like perfectly written. And it's really hard to imagine the mindset that I've noticed in Europe and in various parts of the Americas, even in Asia, with the attitude toward almost giving aid and support to these terrorist organizations to come up with a solution to a problem that they have really been fermenting. And I think you said it. You were correct earlier with John. You brought up education and the mindset and the upbringing. And I think at this point, you have so many young kids who are going to, for generations, they're brainwashed at this point, and it's going to be very difficult to come up with any solution. And I think it's very important that the international community is going to have to start recognizing the real issues and the real problems behind any kind of solution and why things are happening in the first place. And as you said, what other country on this earth would accept their neighbor continually launching rockets into their land? Would Russia do that? Would China accept that? Would the United States accept that? I don't think so.
We're talking about summertime right now, and like any other, I'm sure, home with kids, parents are concerned with summer plans. And for me, too, as a mother, I'm taking my kids to different summer camps. But Hamas also has their own summer camps, but the agenda in the summer camps is very different than what you and I know. There's no pools there, and there are no sports there, but there are some very interesting training for 10-year-olds how to kidnap soldiers, or how to kidnap Israelis, and how to use a light weapon, and how to use an M16. And this is the next generation of Hamas militants, and this is something that, of course, is very much concerning and troubling. And not to go into the textbooks in Gaza, where the map of Israel is a totally different map than what is really known to us. Of course, the Holocaust does not exist there. A very big part of the history does not exist there. And the incitement is actually around every corner. If you open the Al-Aqsa TV, which is the Hamas television network, you'll see the kids' programs there, and often you'll see kids being interviewed. They can be as young as 4 years old, and they express their wish to become a shaheed, to become a martyr. And this is something that is really unacceptable and ununderstandable in the Western set of mind.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Avital Leibovich, we're so grateful for you to join us today. And John and I, we pray for Israel every day. And I think all of us here, all of our fans, our listeners, and our staff certainly pray that these three young people will be returned safely to the people of Israel, and that this will come to a quick end and not be dragged on and end in any way that we wouldn't want it to. So, of course, our thoughts are with you. We thank you. And I'd like to offer you this opportunity to share the website of any of the organizations you're associated with that you'd like to promote.
Of course. So, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you to the listeners and to all those supporting us in America. We are seeing from Israel the different effects of your support. We are witnessing the different prayers, and I have pictures every day that I'm getting from all over the world, including America, of people gathering and praying for the three teens that were kidnapped and for Israel, and I do appreciate that. I would urge you to go into www.ajc.org in order to find out some information about what we are doing in AJC. I think you'll find some interesting information that you can share with your relatives and friends.
Well, thank you so much. And, of course, we look forward to having you back on the program soon. And we wish you a good evening. I know it's late for you, so thank you so much for taking the time this evening. Take care.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.